This is part two of the L88 speaker restoration, and part two is going to consist of restoring the woofers, which are the JBL 123A-1 woofers. This one here I take out. Both of them are locked up. This one's completely locked up, as you see. That will not move at all. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out of there and get it ready for fixing. So as I said before, this is the woofer out of the speaker, and it's a JBL 123A-1. So we'll go ahead and flip it over and check it out. So the driver is, as I said, oh, well, it actually has a little bit of movement. You can hear the scraping is pretty bad. So I want to save the cone and the surround and the gasket and not do any harm to that in this process. So we're going to cut out, first of all, the dust cap. Get that off first. So with a little X-Acto blade, I'm going to start cutting into the edge of this dust cap and try to get that as close to the edge between the cone and dust cap as possible, because we're going to go ahead and glue that dust cap back down after we're done with this. So I'll go ahead and spare you the gory details of cutting around here, and I'll cut to when, bring it back when I'm finished, and you'll see. Just try to keep right at that glue joint edge through this whole process. The dust cap is now cut off, and that's exposed the voice coil, which is here, and the basket magnet structure in the gap that voice coil fits into. So now what I'm going to do is cut right next to the voice coil to separate the voice coil from the cone. So where that black line is, I'm going to cut all the way around here, and I'll have to separate the wires that go from the outside of the basket and connect the power source to the voice coil. I'm going to have to cut those wires because they lead down into the voice coil. So they'll be cut right at that edge where the voice coil is. So I'll get started on that and just straight trimming right in this area. Make sure I've got the voice coil cut, and just it's not an easy process, but you have to push through there with some type of real sharp blade to get through that glue joint and through the cone to separate that voice coil. Okay, so I've cut around there and basically released the voice coil from the cone and the spider at the same time. There's a telltale sign in here. Look at how bad that voice coil looks. Looks like the material that the wire of the voice coil itself, the former, is bubbled up, and it probably got so hot in here. Look at burn mark. This probably got so hot that it probably melted some of the former, probably melted all the coating off of the wires too. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and pull this voice coil, try to get this pulled out. Look at how burned that looks. Try and get this pulled out, see if I can get this wire moved out of there. and pulled out of this whole thing. And actually, it looks like it's ready to go, but I'm going to get some needle nose pliers and try to force that out of there. Pull this out all the way around and see how bad condition that thing is. It's stuck in there. This is the hard part, is getting it physically removed from the gap at this point, because it's in there. It's in there pretty good still. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working this, and I'm going to take some needle nose and try to pull this out. Chances are it's not going to pull out on its own. I'll have to pull the wire out on its, just strand by strand to get this out of here, because it's so burned inside that gap. Anyway, so I'll fight with that and get that pulled out, and you'll see the results of that. So it only took maybe about 5 minutes, but this is the mess I was left with. You can see it's just really burned bad. There's some decent wire, but this wire here is just burnt. You can see all the burn scoring marks on here. Somebody was really cranking this baby up, and this is what it is. So I still have to kind of clean out the voice coil, take a little bit of post-it note paper, has like a gooey side to it, and just kind of run that through there, get anything that may have fallen in the gap. And I'm gonna go grab the other voice coil, the new voice coil, trying to dry fit it in there and see if it fits in this hole. And one thing if you cut very close to the edge of the voice coil where it glues in to the cone, if you cut very close, you can still have the spider remain attached to inside there. You see the little gold edge, there's a spider. So I got almost all of it. I'm probably going to have to glue a little bit, because I see a little bit there. I don't know if you can tell where the spider was separated from the glue on the cone. But if it's glued together, I'll go ahead and epoxy that. But if it stays glued together, the closer you cut to the voice coil, it'll stay, the spider will stay glued to the cone. So that makes things easier when putting the new voice coil in there. I'm gonna go grab that and let's see how it fits. This is my new voice coil. As you see, for comparison, it looks a little better than the old one. What I did is I took a little tape and put it onto the edge of the voice coil, because it has a tendency to fall all the way in the gap, and then it's a little difficult to get it back out again. So I have these tabs to hopefully be able to hold on to that. So all right, so it looks like it's sliding right in there, and if I let it go, it'll go right all the way and bottom out in that gap. So then I can pull it out, hopefully, and be able to nudge it, wiggle its way out of there. So it fits pretty well. I've had it where I didn't do a very good cutting job, and I've learned that you got to cut this really close so that it fits tight. You don't have gaps around here that you have to fill, put something in there. So when you epoxy the cone and spider onto this new voice coil, that it doesn't drip down into there. So as long as you have it tight in here, that epoxy will stay in that position, and just glue the voice coil, the new voice coil, to the cone. And you got these your wires coming out from the voice coil. Try to line those up as well as I can with old wires that went in, and I'll go ahead later and I'll kind of peel off or pull off this glue to expose the wire, so I can go ahead and solder that back on. And then all that'll be left is put the dust cap back onto there. Make sure everything is epoxied real well. So next thing I'll do is go ahead and position this. Make sure I have, first of all, make sure I have the cone all attached to the spider. So I'll get that little spot, a couple spots that go through here and make sure where that has to glue up. I'll get that epoxied. And then I'll go ahead and shim and put this in, get that position at the height that I want it, and then epoxy all the way around. Shim it and epoxy all the way around. And I'll have that in position, and then it'll be, hopefully, we'll go ahead and test it. I'll test it and make sure that I have clearance and I don't have any scraping or rubbing of the voice coil onto that gap. So, be back in a minute. All right, so got a couple more cleanup efforts before I glue the new voice coil in there. And as you can see, there's a couple of places where that cone is not contacting the spider. So there's a little area there. I hadn't noticed it before, but there's a larger area right through here. So hopefully you can see that. But it's separated, trust me, it's separated. So I'm going to take a little bit of dollar store super glue gel, because it'll stay in place, and fill that little gap. I'll use a accelerator to make that bond. And then I'm going to go through and take a little Post-it note and run it in the inside of the gap, the magnet gap. You run that inside. Post-it note has the stick. You put the sticky side in there, fold it over, and put the sticky side so it catches both sides of that gap. And just run that inside there however many times. You just want to get any little debris from the years. I'm sure there's some of that burnt material from the old voice coil inside there. So you run it along there and take a couple of them, run it inside there, get it cleaned out as well as possible, as good as possible. Get these glued up. And then also I'm going to take an X-Acto knife and then peel off this coating that's covering the wire here, going to this leads to power up the speaker. I'm going to peel that off so I can get to those original wires. So when I go ahead and I solder, I'm going to solder these leads to this wire here, and that'll give me my connectivity to the power source. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start gluing that, and I'll show you how that looks when I'm done. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I glued the spider back in place. So you see if I move that, there's no separation. I went ahead and I grabbed it from the inside to make sure that that spider will not separate from the cone, and all looks good. And I went ahead and I cleaned out the gap in the magnet, and you see there's quite a bit of debris that got pulled out of there. And I went ahead and I took off that material that was holding the wire going from the back through the cone. And one of them was completely disintegrated, so there wasn't even any wire left there. It was burned up. And based on the voice coil, you can see that was burned up also. There's another wire left, but I think I'm going to go ahead and take those leads and just solder them right to these little posts. So at this point, I am ready to put the voice coil in place. I want to keep my leads right over here where they're going to go, where they're going to solder in. So we'll go ahead and take the voice coil, get that pushed down. It's a pretty tight fit, but it goes in. Come on. Okay, there it goes. All right, now put a, let's see, where are my shims? I'll put a shim in there to hold it in place. What did I do? What did I do with my shims? All right, there's my shims. Put a shim in there just to keep it from moving around. Now what I'm going to do is I get the leads lined up there where I want them to go. Now I went ahead and I cut a little piece out of this card so I could go ahead. This is the height that I want the voice coil to go up to. So I guess you can see that at an angle. So I'm going to use that to pull up on the voice coil when I go ahead and glue this. And I'm going to use 4 shims and glue at the point of each shim. The shims will be basically in these positions. I'm going to glue just those 4 points. I'm going to epoxy them just so I can keep this in place. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a full shim inside so that the whole gap is maintained around the entire voice coil. So I'll go ahead and put these shims in, get the height adjusted with this, and then I'll go ahead and just tack in the voice coil. Get it tacked into place, and then take my big shim and put it around here and then epoxy the whole thing. So I'll be back in a second once I get I'm going to get the shims in here and get the voice coil tacked in, and then I'll start recording again when I put the big shim in. The tacking is complete, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the shims out. See how that worked. So I don't feel any rubbing in there. I could probably just go ahead and epoxy the cone to the voice coil, but I'm going to go ahead and put in this full shim just in case, because I just don't want to have any issues with alignment with this. So I'm going to try to put this in. Let's see if I can get this in while I'm recording. And kind of work this around. Can be a little tricky getting this in. Come on. Let's see if I can get something in here to push that in. Oh, it's hanging up. As you can see, it's fairly tight. But the tighter, the better with this, because you definitely want to have that so that the voice coil is not rubbing on the magnet. Let me see if I can get that in there. I'm trouble seeing old eyesight. Almost in there. Tell you what, I'll get that in and I'll keep recording. The bottom got a little messed up, so I had to cut that again, but you see I have the shim inserted all the way down into the voice coil, so it'll maintain its shape all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and epoxy that, and hopefully we won't have any rub, and we'll test it out and make sure that it's working all right after it's been fully glued in. It's been a little while, and while I was waiting for the voice coil to for the epoxy to completely adhere or to solidify, I went ahead and I soldered the wires and put a bunch of epoxy in there to get that, to make sure that that voice coil is not going to move any point in the future. So now I'm going to go ahead and take that shim out of here. And that's what we're left with. And as you can tell, no scraping. So anyway, it takes a lot of patience. You just need to take your time. And one of the reasons why I did it this way is because if anybody's redone or reconed a JBL speaker, one of the issues is just trying to get everything taken apart. The JBL used amazing glue when they put these together. So keeping the original cone and the original glue and the original accordion surround is really important to me. So anyway, last thing I have to do is just put that dust cap on and try it out. This is the finished product. You can see that that's been glued all the way around. It's been tested. Works good. Here's the other one inside the old JBL L88 cabinet. And I went ahead and I played that a lot last night for about an hour each speaker. And they sound wonderful. So that was probably the hardest part of the project. Once again, please do not try this. I've done this for a lot of years since I was a teenager in the late 70s, and I'm pretty experienced in doing these kind of projects, so don't want anybody hurt themselves. And the next project will be the tweeter. We'll go ahead and fix the cones and make those look perfect again too. Later.